Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of Wednesday Night Weaboo. I'm your host, Christian Ashley. I'm, of course, associated with Systematic Geekology. We are the Priest to the Geeks, welcoming you to this wonderful journey where I am going through every bit of the newest anime seasons of the shows that I'm covering that I'd like you guys to watch along with me. If there's other stuff that you want me to talk about too, feel free to send that my way. Chances are I've pretty much finalized my list. I've gotten rid of a lot more since last time. I'm still debating whether or not to do this as a weekly series, as a bi-weekly series. I'm kind of edging towards the latter in that I think it'd be a little bit easier on me, even though that may make some streams going a little longer than I would want to. I think at the end of the day, it's still less time than if I did it both weeks. So let me know what you think about that as well. As we leave this on YouTube, this will be on Twitter and our Facebook group as well. So just let me know what you think about this whole process. As we go into our lightning round, just one of the things that I am changing up from the original. I did learn from last time, and that, maybe covering all this stuff at once is a lot. So why don't I just go ahead and limit some of what I'm doing, but not to the point where I'm disregarding series that I do still want to talk about. Obviously, you see the first one there on our list is Atelier Ryza, and I'm very charmed by the video games, and I really want to discuss the show as well, but there's only so much time in the day, and honestly, you just got to get some of this stuff done, and that's what we're going to be doing for our lightning rounds from now on. Not everything will be just what I'm watching in its entirety. So I'll be focusing, I think there are 3 series now in our lightning round and then 7 series. So that means if you don't hear something in this roundup here, that means I'm not watching it anymore, or at least not covering it for this. So if that's something that upsets you, I'm sorry, but it's just better on me and my time to do it the way I'm doing it right now. All right, now moving on, we go to episode 3 of Atelier Ryza, A Memorable Scent. And we start this episode, we kind of see that Ryza has obtained a staff from Impel for her hard work, and it lets her cast. It's one of the things you can do in the games, is it allows her to use it's kind of weird how they handle magic in this series. It's kind of like it exists, but you're more focused on the alchemy, don't really worry too much about how magic works kind of things. So that's what it is. And at the same time, we have Claudia getting upset because she doesn't really know what she wants to do, or she can't do what she wants to do at the same time of what she wants in her life. She's always been on the road. She's never really had a group of friends to interact with, and just struggling with okay, here's what I've been told to do. Here's what I want to do, all that mess. And we also see that Ryza is setting out to go get some fabric for dye so that she can use it for her alchemy. That's one of the things you can also do in the game as well. This leads to a little side quest they made the main focus of this episode. In that, they all go to the mainland, minus, I think, Claudia, if I remember correctly, in this point. I can't remember. Sorry. Yeah, I think minus her. And when they do that, they get alchemy ingredients with Lila, and they find a flower for an older woman in the village named Barbara because of its sentimental value. Because it was once part of a letter she received that the dyer of the village sent once years ago when they were younger, and he doesn't want her to know it was him. It's this whole kind of there was a trio of friends. She ended up with one guy, not the other. And Ryza is able to eventually use alchemy to recreate that scent, and it reunites the 2 old friends. So it's a very nice little slice of lifey, very wholesome episode. And we get to episode 4, Sunken Mine, where our trio goes out for some training and to find some alchemy ingredients. They go into this sunken mine that's kind of nearby where they land to get to the mainland from their boat. And inside there, they get confronted with several creatures, and eventually Ryza uses a bomb that she made without truly knowing just how potent it is to save them all. At the whole time this has been revealed, Lila's kind of been tailing them and just making sure they're not there to screw up. And she gets a bit of a well-deserved meeting with Impel. It's hey, you can't just be doing this stuff with you've got to test the stuff that you use before you use it in combat. That could be an easy way for everyone to get killed. But at the same time, there's still that praise he offers of hey, you still did this really well. So that was Atelier Ryza episodes 3 through 4. We will move on from there to the next one in our lightning round, which will be Genjutsu no Yohane, which of course is the spinoff of the Love Live series. And let me get to that in my notes. And of course, why is this not wanting to work for me? That's just perfect. I love when things don't work correctly, when you want them to immediately. And there we go. Okay. So episode 4 is what we need to be covering this time. Sorry, it's a hard one with this because it started a little earlier than everything else. Episode 4, Between the Sky and Sea. And we start with Hanamaru introducing Yohane to her friend Yu, who works as a messenger, and she gives her a letter from her mother that kind of sparks her memory of, oh no, I'm supposed to be like finding out what I'm supposed to be doing in this life. I'm not supposed to just goof around. She gave me some homework to do. And it's finding that task of something that Yohane truly enjoys. And so she just asks if she can follow you on her mail route. And they do so, going to the mail building. And there's this very fun thing of this machine that they use to fly around to deliver more letters that they wouldn't be able to normally do without it. And you see Yohane starting to like chill down a little bit, like let the ice queen part of herself, kind of the more chuny part of herself, kind of not die, but get a little softer. Which I really appreciate her opening up to the more people she meets, she start hanging out with, enjoying their company. We see that come out. And in the process of them delivering mail, they meet Kanan, who also has this little robot frog thing called Tono-sama they talk to there. And what they find out is that what Kanan does in the town is she makes a lot of things by recycling items that she finds, especially she finds on the ocean floor. And they follow her as she's repairing a swing set for the town. And before that happens, though, Yohane, all she can see is like this broken mess. But Kanan has this very fun moment where she asks her, hey, look at the future and the potential of what it could be if you just work on it. And like, she also has this moment of, oh, these same swings were where I met Lilaps for the first time. And it kind of inspires her to help her out with this. And they fix the swings and they watch the neighborhood kids play on them. And Yohane thanks you and Kanan for teaching her. And yeah, she promises to tell them if she ever figures out what she wants to do. And they run off and spend a little time together. And she also has a really sweet moment where she actually declares the town of Numazu to be her home, which, if you recall from the very beginning of the series, she was very much not going to do. And it's also at this point, Lilaps sees 3 shining symbols on Yohane's staff suddenly go dark. So there's this moment of, okay, how is this affecting her in that way? Is it because she's making friends? Is it because she's getting too complacent? What's going on with the staff? Like, I think it's foreshadowing the fact that she is getting better with herself and the staff is responding to that. So we go into from there to episode 5, The Demon Lord's Secret. And this is at the start. We have Yohane and Lilaps learning about this mysterious noise that younger people can hear. And they're then contacted by Mari to come and meet her. And she explains that for years, her family has had this book in their possession that kind of speaks of what's happening right now. And it points that she has to do this because of her genetics, because being a part of this family with her appearance and her powers that other people don't have. Like, this is kind of like, I am predisposed genetically to do this. So I've made my lot in life with that. And in the talk, Yohane takes this moment to say, hey, I want to be your friend. And Mari is like taken aback for a bit. She says, well, it's not possible because of who she is and the way people don't like her, and she makes them leave. We also see later on that Daya and Ruby go to try and meet Mari, but instead they just find a note from her where she just tells them about various things in the town that she's overheard, that in the village can be fixed, like there's a crack in a bridge or something like that. And it just goes to show like she still cares about people, even knowing that they don't care for her. It's a very good moment there too. And we see Ruby later on meeting with Yohane, Yu, and Kanan to tell them what Mari told them in that letter. And that night, Mari goes to meet with Yohane and explains to her she felt very bad about how she handled that situation. She explains to her, like, this is how my powers work, and my appearance weirds people out. And so I just isolate myself to avoid problems. And at that moment, Yohane then gets her to agree to walk around town to build her confidence. And she watches Yohane make an impact on the town in such a short amount of time, which to her, obviously, she's overheard everything, but to actually see it in action is a very different step. But in the process, like, I don't think it's agoraphobia. Is that what it is? A fear of large spaces or open spaces or something like that? Or is that the opposite? I can never remember. But she freaks out as a result of that. She's not able to handle it. And Johanna takes the time and say, look, it's okay. I'm here for you. And she helps calm her down. And Mari really appreciates that. So they go, she requests that Johanna sing to her, even though she could be wherever, but it's different being in person with the person who's singing there. So they're about to do this and they're interrupted by the sudden appearance of this magical lightning storm. Even with all the things that I've said here, it's a pretty chill show. And sure, there are bad things happening, but I don't see this ever going to the the Cerberus route of Cerberus, or however the heck they say it, of making it darker and edgier. No, this is just fun and pleasant, but it's also not why I'm really focusing on it too much, because there's not really that many stakes. Now, something that does have a little more stakes is Helck, and I do apologize for this, for Helck and for what's the other one in this list? I can't remember for the life of me. I just watched it earlier today. Goodness gracious. I'm missing the season 2. And Sin Duality Noir. Both of them, I'm missing the episode 2 synopses that I wrote down. For some reason they didn't save to this file that I'm using, so I apologize for that. I'll try and remember as much as I can. So for this, in the last episode, in episode 2, they had this moment of Helck making friends with some of the people in the tournament with him, and of course Emilio getting upset and all that. And they find that there was this army of winged angel-like knights who took over the castle we'd heard about before. And it's them trying to figure out, okay, what can we do with that? And she decides, after Helck wins this race they have, that we're going to make the next Demon King the one who kills the commander of these knights who overtook this castle and retakes the castle, which is a brilliant strategy because your Demon King, your Demon Lord, is going to need to be able to do that. So she then takes on the appearance like she did in the cooking contest of Anne, pretending just to be some grunt versus who she actually is. That's where we start in episode 3, The Unknown Enemy. We also start there with one of our scouts. I think her name was Asta. We've seen her before. She's kind of watching the human countries, reporting back to their side, but noticing that the human side of the world isn't plagued with this kind of invisible toxin that lives on the demon side of the world that kind of forces them all to live in these magically shielded cities. And that's setting up a little thing that'll happen later on in this episode, where at this point in time, Helck, Kinros, Hura, and Dorushi, who are the other 3 who are competing in the tournament to become the Demon Lord, and they all kind of really get together, get along with each other at this point in time, outside of a little bit of Hura, but maybe, I don't know if I fully trust Dorushi yet, but that's what it is. And Vermilio, like I said before, is in her secret identity of Anne, which of course Hura sees through, but no one else does because they're kind of dumb. And on the way, they fight these little toxin-affected bugs. We see Dorushi use one of his abilities for the first time to allow them to get to a rest area that's safe from the toxins, to kind of have it magically sealed where they can't get in. And Kinros. Kinros is told by Hura about her suspicions about Anne being Vermilio, and Helck fixes them dinner again, which makes her upset because, she already gave him a full score the last time. She doesn't want to praise him again for his food. And of course she does, because that's just how funny he is in that regard. We also go over to Han and Azudra, who are playing this board game together. And they get asked, if they think the group will be okay, will they come back alive from this assault on the castle to regain it? They're like, it'll be all right. We know who's there. We know who's capable. And they've got Vermilio with them, even if they don't know she's with them. And we go back to that group as they're going underground to find their way into the castle, fighting with what Vermilio calls this new world life form, which seems to be something that's been affected by the presence of the toxin. And she notes that Helck seems to know what it is, which he shouldn't, because they've been fighting while they're having this war with humanity to prevent these things from spreading into the demon realm, but also into the human part of the world too. So the fact that he knows about it gives her a little suspicion about, okay, he knows a little more than he's trying to let on here. They finally make their way into the castle, infiltrate it, and she tells them, once again, hey, whoever kills the leader of the group, they're going to be the one who's made Demon Lord. And in the flashback, we learn that Azudra was actually the one who told Helck about the tournament in the first place. He had, in the midst of the war, confronted Helck and laid several traps to try and kill him, only for him to fall in one himself. And that's why he's so heavily injured, because we thought, oh, well, obviously he was in a battle with Helck. No, he's just an idiot. And Helck was actually the one who helped him survive. And that's one of the reasons why he trusts him now. And going back to our group in the present, they locate a leader and 6 of his knights there. But before they can actually do something about it, they start bickering. And Vermilion gets angry about that, starts yelling, which gives away their position. So they all charge blindly ahead, and the leader gets up and he slices off Hira's right arm. And that's kind of where we end that episode. That was pretty good. No, of course, I didn't actually put Helck on there because, I'm really good at what I do here. As I'm about to shift to the next thing we're supposed to do. So I am enjoying the series. It's not, how do I want to put this? It's not going to be my favorite any point in time. Does that make sense? Like, I don't regret watching this week to week, but then it's also not like the one I'm going to focus on. It's like, yep, that right there. That's the one. That's the one I want. So on from our lightning round, we're going to our episode proper. Well, we'll start, of course, with Bleach. This is episode 2, Peace from Shadows. We watch as the Stern Raiders start attacking the Soul Society. And in the flashback, we see Jugrim say that they need to attack before some of the Soul Reapers regain their Bankai. And we see Uyu, and oh my gosh, I literally last week looked up how to say this word just to say it correctly here, and it's not ever what you would suspect it would be. For you want to say Yawak or Yawach, it's like Juhuba, something like that. I'm just gonna say the big Y at this point in time, just because until I for sure have it nailed down, it's annoying. And they kind of speak on how the Quincy's were nearly wiped out and despised. And we see Askin attacking some scientists in the Soul Society. And Shunsui, meanwhile, has set up some traps and goes with Nanao to attack Jugrim, who they successfully trap in one of these things, preventing him from attacking. And Miyuri then confronts Askin, and he reveals that he knew from collecting data about how the Vandenreich had been, hiding in the shadows of Soul Society, which is how they were able to prevent being destroyed all those years ago. And he prepared for this eventuality by testing out some new ideas, including creating the space where there's the absence of shadows, so they could never see what he was doing in there because they were spying on them the whole time. We also see Bazby being confronted by Hitsugaya and Rangiku. And then we see Omaida, how the heck you say his name, comforting his sister. And he goes off to fight BG9, who's the one who stole Soifan's Bankai before. And we go back to Rangiku, who's able to protect herself in Hitsugaya by cleverly kind of using her Shikai to create some ash to enhance his ice walls. And there's a lot of back and forth here of going, who's here, who's there? So this is how it is in the episode. It's how it is in a conversation. And we go to Nanao, and she speaks of how the Stern Raiders' initial assault was a very foolish move because it allowed them to gain intelligence on them, while we flash over to Omaida, who takes an attack to save his sister, but he gets stabbed in the back by BG9. But before the latter can use his minigun to kill Omaida, Soifan appears, being undetectable thanks to her stealth training. So she no longer has her Bankai anymore, but she's still able to fight. And she says that her Shunko has been perfected since their last fight. We go back to Mayuri and Askin fighting each other, and the other captains start to lose their fights. Even with all Soifan's bravado, like she starts to lose her fight kind of handily. And Hitsugaya is almost killed at the same time as her. Mayuri realizes this, but before he can do anything about it, he's contacted by Kisuke Urahara, who says that he's completed the method for them to regain their Bankai. And our post-credit scene is Ichigo still continuing his journey to learn how to regain his Bankai and stuff like that. That's episode 2. Episode 3, the fundamental virulence. We see Kangdu, the Stern Raider who helped Bazby take down Hitsugaya and Rangiku, is about to kill her in front of him. And not only that, using Hitsugaya's Bankai to do it. And that's when they replay Kisuke's message from earlier about them regaining their Bankai. And Kisuke and Mayuri then team up to help the captains regain their lost Bankai by kind of delivering these like black pellets that I'll explain what they do in a second. And he realized that when the Sternritter attacked the Arrancar, we saw that in last season, they never stole their resurrection, which is basically their version of Bankai. But because they did, and they know that they work because of all that, that means they shouldn't be able to steal Bankai either, except that they can, because Soul Reapers and the Sternritter, the Quincy's, are close enough to where it can work, but a Arrancar can't. So there's something inherently wrong about them that makes it impossible for the resurrection to be stolen. So it's disadvantageous. Kisuke then realizes, oh, so that's what I got to do. He delivers those black pills to the people, and it reestablishes their links to their swords and allows them to release their Bankai again, kind of giving it back to them, but it's now empowered with more hollow powers coming from the Arrancar in that sense, which makes it antithetical to the Quincy's, who Kisuke and Miyuri discuss how they, by their very nature, can't abide being in the presence of hollows. It kind of messes with their very soul and corrupts them. So that's one of the reasons they're so fervent about exterminating them. So if they allow the Soul Reapers to tap into a bit of hollow power, it can cause their Bankai to be antithetical to the Quincy's existence and harm them, since they're actively using the Soul Reaper's Bankai at that time, so kind of hoisting them by their own petard in that situation. So Soifan takes out BG9. Hitsugaya takes down Kangdu. We see Shinji confronting some Sternritter and using his Zanpakuto to mess with their perception of reality, which is something that says, oh, I can't normally do this because I have my teammates nearby, but since it's just you jokers, I can screw with you. We also go to Ikaku and Yumichika, who meet up with Shuhei, but they're then confronted by the Masculine and his fan James, and like getting their butts whooped by him, starting off that plot thread. While we also follow Bombietta along with Meninas, Candice, Latolto, and Giselle as they're separated from one another, and we see Shinji and Komamura confront her. However, when they're all confronted with the loss to the Soul Reaper's Bankai, the Sternritter instead released their Volstandig. All these German words are killing me, man. And kind of like, okay, well, you took our advantage, but you do realize we still also have these things too, right? And that's where we leave off that episode. Bleach. Love Bleach. I love seeing a lot of this get developed a lot more than it was in the manga. It's a lot more pleasing to my eyes to see a lot of this animated. I'm ready to keep going with Bleach. Next up, though, we do have Dark Gathering, which is kind of my sleeper hit of this anime season. If not number one, it's definitely on that list. And we're going to start here in episode 2, which is entitled Keitaro Gentoga. In Yayoi's room, we see the spirit that she caught earlier in the first episode get torn apart by the other spirits in there. She then later on asks Keitaro while they're stuttering. Sorry, Freudian slip there. That's what I do. While they're studying to go somewhere haunted, he tries to decline, but the girls just kind of take him away against his wishes, her and Eiko. And while there, he reveals that because of what had happened a while back, he has to get regular exorcisms. And Eiko says that his grandmother's able to do it because she's a Miko. For those of you who are unaware, a Miko is kind of like not necessarily a nun, but there's a correlation there that they serve a temple and they perform sacred duties for that temple. And she is qualified to give out exorcisms as a result. So they go to visit her shrine, and she confronts Yayoi for breaking Jesus statues, which we did see in the last episode, which obviously would be huge against not what they would want in Buddhism and Shintoism and stuff like that. But Keitaro stops her before she can do anything, and she swears vengeance on Yayoi if she ends up getting her grandchild hurt. His grandmother then takes him away. I don't know if we ever learned her name. I can't remember if I saw that or not. I want to say we don't. She takes him away to begin her exorcism of him, and she starts asking him about his life, just being genuinely interested, as a good grandmother does. And Yayoi wants to watch, but Eiko stops her, and she promises, hey, I'll show you what's actually under that gloved hand. I have a photo of it, just to quell her curiosity. And we see that his nerves As a result of this curse, kind of grow too large after time has passed, and it hurts him immensely, and they have to be cut off of him in a special ritual. And his nerves are then used as kind of like this offering of sorts. And before that has happened, Yayoi takes some away out of curiosity. And in the midst of this, Keitaro's grandmother talks about how their shrine holds memorial services for dolls that are cursed. Keitaro finds one when he goes to the bathroom, and it possesses him. So setting it up right before it happens. There we go. That's pretty nicely done. And they notice him acting kind of weirdly, and Yayoi goes to save him. He's brought into this basement before she can actually get to him, where these dolls are all stored, and they try to possess him so they can all escape. But she decapitates the doll doing this and saves him. And when they leave, he then praises her to his grandmother, who finally says, okay, you little weird kid, but like, I do see you do like, my son, you're a very good kid. And she encourages Keitaro to be like, hey, it's okay. Like, these bad things are going to keep happening, but I still love you. I'm going to protect you as best I can. And we see that Yayoi has taken her spoils from the fight and talks about showing him her collection, where he finds that she's done basically the same thing with dolls in her own room by kind of implanting them with things associated with those spirits. Like earlier, the phone that she severed that was tied to the spirit at the phone booth, she kind of put it in one of those dolls. Like, she reveals that when spirits possess something, they must conform to its space. So she reattaches the doll's head with his severed nerves and then asks him for his nails. We learn in the next episode why, which is episode 3, Friends. So when he sees this, freaks out, leaves. He shows up the next day because, he's still, is tutoring her. He has a job to do. He doesn't want to let Eiko down as his friend who gave him this position. But she just comes up to him, Yayoi, and just like demanding his nails again and again, won't let it go. And when he's not very receptive to this, like, they try and drag him to another haunted location, but he runs away again, just saying like, hey, this scares me. And as they leave him behind, Yayoi tells Eiko, like, I genuinely thought he liked scary stuff, despite acting like he didn't, because she thinks that at any time he could have removed the curse from his hand, and so can she. And Eiko's kind of like weirded out by that. And Yayoi asks Eiko if they can go to a place where they can find the means to remove the curse, because he's become a little more than a tutor to her. Like, he started to become her friend, and she wants to look out for him. So they go to this abandoned temple in West H City, and it was designed and dedicated for babies who had died before they were born. There's some more Jizo statues there, and they also have a statue there of this maternal figure who's said to watch over them while they haunt the place, like actually give them a kind of mother figure while they're being lost. And this figure is known as Kishimojin, who, if you'll look into some of your Buddhist and Shinto mythologies, is a goddess of children and childbirth. And she seeks revenge on their behalf. She watches over the kids while they're in this ghostly state, kind of adopts them as her own. And Yayoi tells Eiko to stay in the car, and can only come help if she doesn't come back in an hour, because it's just that dangerous. And we learn that Kishimojin was actually once an evil goddess, but when one of the Buddha, and for those who don't know, there's more than one Buddha. There's the original who started Buddhism, and there's several people along the way who've been said to have attained enlightenment, and they have become a Buddha. That's why typically, when you go to your Chinese restaurants, you're going to see the fat Buddha. That's a separate Buddha than the original Indian Buddha. So all that to say, like, one of those Buddha took one of her children away, and she finally learned what loss truly was, and she stopped being this evil, villainous person who actually ate children and devoted herself to protecting them instead. Weird mythology, but that's what it is, man. And we see that Yayoi is attacked by some of the spirits. They kind of topple the statue on her, but it's revealed this isn't actually her. She's been using some of her little paper dolls. I don't know if this is exactly Shikigami, if it's something different. And she has placed these doppelgangers of herself all over the place to drive them away while she goes and to the main statue, takes a bit of it off, all while Keitaro has appeared, because Eiko has gotten scared since Yayoi didn't come back, got him. He became brave enough to go seek her out. And that's where we end up there. He manages to get them all following him, grabs her as she takes something off of the statue, and they flee But in the process, she kind of twists her ankle. So they go to the hospital. And after that, he takes her back home by carrying her on his back. And it makes her reflect on the times her dad would do that for her. And she thinks, if she was just stronger, like when that entity that took her mother away, maybe she would have been able to stop it. And she tells Keitaro that he's her friend and she doesn't want to see him hurt. So she explains, like, hey, like, I'm asking for your toenails because that's part of this ritual. If I have a physical part of the person that I'm supposed to protect, then I can put them in these dolls and that will do it for me. Like in the same way she did with the paper dolls, is that she was able to protect herself. In that regard, she wants to do the same for him. And all of her dolls and plushies that she has in her room have a piece of herself in them so that they can't attack her without harming themselves. And she's done this for everyone else in the Hozuki family and wants to do it for him too because he's her friend. And it's a very sweet and very twisted way. So she reveals that she stole a piece of the finger of the statue so that the spirits in her collection could take their rage out on it instead of her, because she knows if she just allows that rage to continue on and on, they're just going to go stronger. So if they have something to take it out on, then they lose some of that power. And she wanted to trap the goddess there to force her to kill the one who cursed him. So if she's able to trap that goddess, well, of course, it's going to be strong enough to probably take down the thing that cursed him in the first place. And this kind of makes him reflect that he wasn't the only one who got hurt then. And we find out that the other person who got hurt was actually Eiko. And that's kind of the sense we get, because she's had some moments before of like, there's something off about her. And maybe she's possessed right now and they don't know it, or something like that. So that's where we're at. Dark Gathering. Other than the next one I'm about to talk about, definitely my dark horse for this summer anime season. That is the Gene of AI. We'll be going to episode 2 this time around to start off. And that is the limits of growth. So we start with 3 high schoolers at a restaurant talking about how you can tell the difference between humans and humanoids. And one of them says, like, it's all in the eyes. And one of them, who is a humanoid, is asked why they still age. And he says that's part of why they just do that to fit in with the society. And we go to another table there where June is thinking about how he's a humanoid, if I remember correctly. And he is thinking back to his track and field race where he fell behind his other classmates while his best friend there, Masa, tried to cheer him up. But he just feels like he keeps falling behind everyone. So he goes to visit Hikaru at his office. It is, what's the word that I'm looking for? No, well, we'll just say office. Practice. And he says, hey, like, what can I do to get better? And like, this is kind of the only sport where both humans and humanoids can compete together. Like, the technology isn't there for them to have a physical advantage over humans just yet. And he wants to find a way to play on an even playing field with everyone. And we also see Rise at that same time has noticed that Hikaru has a bit of a sweet tooth, and she tries to buy something for him. Only after June has left, he is helping out another patient who happens to be a more voluptuous woman getting a breast examination, and she asked him to do that because she didn't like where they were, and she wants him to upgrade them again. And because she has realized that the bigger they are, the more attention she gets from men. Imagine that. This, of course, makes Rise jealous, especially when she learns that this woman and Hikaru go way back. And she remarks on how, as humanoids, they can't, this being the woman, they can't create life, but men desire them anyways. And Hikaru reveals her name is Kaoru. And they both leave the clinic together, and that makes Rise even more jealous. So we see Kaoru and Hikaru speaking on a park bench about how she kind of wants to make him a member of the committee that could get him closer to someone named Michi and maybe learn more about his mother. And she remarks that, even with all these scientific advancements they have, human societies, pretty much kind of stayed the same. And Hikaru kind of disagrees with that, as we find out later on. And we see Jun and Masa, the friends, run together, but Jun just keeps getting angry that people keep cheering him on when he knows that he can't succeed, and he runs away before practice, only to return and end up getting even angrier at practice, and he regrets ever being a humanoid. And in gym later that day, They're playing volleyball together in this friendly match, and he tries to hit it beyond what's expected of him, only for him to knock down Masa by accident, and Masa breaks his leg. And a lot of people think he did that on purpose because, of course, well, Masa's doing better than him. They start all that rumor mill gossip mongering you're going to hear when something like this happens. And when they have the qualifying races later on, well, he qualifies because Masa isn't in there. And that angers him. And when he goes to visit Masa at the hospital, June hears him cheering him on because they're replaying the qualification rounds. And that makes him really upset for his very conflicted feelings. So at the next meet, we see Hikaru like not announcing his presence, but he came to watch anyway. And we see June doing well. And he actually manages to get first place. And Hikaru remarks that Kaoru's wrong. Society has managed to find a way to keep pushing forward. And we go back to Rise, who's kind of like stewing in her anger, only for Hikaru to come with cakes and to cheer her up. And he remarks on how his mother used to buy him cakes all the time when he was a kid. And Rise just blatantly asks, what's your relationship with Kaoru? And he says that they used to work in the same lab. And not only that, he presents a picture. She used to be a he, and more accurately should be called they. So I think that's what they were going for there. I'm not trying to like screw up the pronouns or anything like that, but I will probably flip between she and they in this, because I'm pretty sure that's setting her up as a character who come in them later on. But Kaoru, meanwhile, they go to meet with Michi about the members of the committee. We see that Michi is actually seemingly the AI version of Hikaru from way earlier, and it's probably one of the things his mother was involved with back in the day. And we see Michi stands for multimodal interface with communications, for communications with human intelligence. Love how they're setting up things there. I'm ready to see more, but let's also go into episode 3 here, which is Where the Heart Lies. Now we open up with a woman burying a body, only for this to be revealed as a dream. And we see in the present, like she bought a robot 7 years ago, and it's kind of like a companion she calls Joe. Her name is Shizuka, and she's not really fond of human men, but she reveals to him that she's fallen in love, and she's upset that he's not upset because of his programming. Like, he's programmed to be the perfect boyfriend, but is it programming? Does he actually have a soul? It doesn't seem like it at the time. We also see Hikaru is repairing a teddy bear kind of robot toy named Papo for a child named Kenji because its memory storage wasn't working correctly, but his mother is angry that he's still acting like a child. Like, why don't you grow up? Why are you still playing with these dumb toys? Even though she was the one who bought it for him a while back. And she kind of grew to resent it, we see, because Papa was having a conversation with Kenji where he said that he would be with him forever, unlike her, because she always has to go to work. And in the present, we see Papa talking about someone named Yuki to Kenji, who they don't know about. So he brings about to Hikaru to figure out what's going on. And before this, the mother confronts Kenji because he stole money to pay for the procedure and tells him that Papa has no feelings of its own and he should stop doing this. But of course, that makes him mad, so he does it anyway. But Hikaru does do a diagnostic on Papa and finds out that the Yuki it mentioned is its previous owner from 20 years ago, which should have been memory wiped. And this Hikaru then gives him, hey, I can delete these memories if you want, but Kenji refuses to do it, which I love how Hikaru is kind of played up as like that stealth mentor kind of way of like, I'm going to present this option to you real quick, but I don't want you to actually take it. Pretty well done. But Kenji refuses to do it, which angers his mom, as later on, like Kenji's dad also talks with him and says, hey, but maybe it's because we just have a poor relationship. And that's why Kenji is seeking love elsewhere. And he then later overhears his mother like talking about getting rid of Papo, and he runs away with Papo. As he's doing this, he watches Shizuka watching Joe leave her for good because he's got to go back to the company that created them. And he says, oh, well, you have 5 years to reclaim me. And otherwise, after that time, my memory will be deleted. And Kenji asks Joe when she leaves, like, hey, are you sad to see her leave? And he says, oh, I'm not programmed for that. But Kenji still believes that robots have a heart too, because, okay, there's humans, humanoids, and robots. Robots are kind of like the prototype humanoids in the setting. So humanoids look a little more like humans. Robots do look like humans, but they're not as capable of humanoids. Very confusing. Welcome to any kind of sci-fi setting. And Joe kind of concedes that Shizuka probably thinks the same thing, that she probably thinks he has a heart. And Popo then tells Kenji that he loves him, but Kenji at the same time, he doesn't know if it's true. And he's kind of freaking out. Popo starts asking passersby for help, but in the midst of this, he gets knocked down and run over by a car. And his family finds Kenji. They find him, and his mother speaks with his dad and asks her if she thinks Popo tried to save Kenji, as they kind of heard like he was asking for help, which he's not programmed to do. And they do their best to save the doll. They get him back to Hikaru, who kind of fixes him for it. And they track down Yuki, and they find out she died some time ago, but her parents didn't tell Popo, so he never found out. And it causes Kenji's mother to cry. It's be like, oh, he still cares about this girl even after all these years. Maybe this thing does have a heart. Then we see them go to the ocean, and they wonder if he does have a heart. And Shizuka at the same time visits Hikaru and asks him about her situation with Joe, and she ultimately decides to continue buying him as kind of the boyfriend, because very interesting situation. I wish I had more time to discuss all this, but it's very fascinating. I love watching the show because, for those of you unaware, this is pretty much artificial intelligence, AI. The what was it? The last goodness gracious, why can I not remember his name for the life of me? Kubrick, his last film before he passed, that I think Spielberg later helped adapt when he did pass in the middle of making the film. There's a lot of references there to it. This is a very fun episode. I love this show like a lot. So yeah, I'm going to keep watching this one. So we'll move from there all the way to Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2, where we get to Episode 2, Hidden Inventory 2. And we watch as Geto interrogates the guy who attacked the hotel, kind of sicks a cursed spirit on him, but he reveals that this guy that was working with the Curse User Group Q organization will stop them, only for Gojo to reveal that he already beat him up by sending a victory picture to Geto. We see Toji is then met by a representative from the Star Religious Group at this betting spot, and is like, hey, we're arranging things. Someone's put a bounty on the girl. We find that this sacrifice, Riko is her name, waking up later in Gojo's arms, and she assumes he's there to kill her, so she's like beats him up in the face, slaps him, and kind of enters a defensive stance until they're able to like mess with her and her maid, Kuroi, who comes in to like actually calm things down. And Riko says that she's proud to be the sacrifice because it means that she'll always be a part of Tengen. That's actually something we just discussed on our What's New episodes. If you want to check out that too, here's your plug for that. But then rather than take her directly to Tengen, they are then ordered to just give in to all of her demands, including letting her go to school. So Kuroi explains that Riko's parents died in a car crash when she was younger, and a bounty that earlier was given out on Riko is to be brought in dead or alive. And we see that Toji was the one who made it. His plan is to allow other people to wear Gojo down over time because he knows he can't take him in a straight up fight because Gojo's ability is just that broken. And so he's going to take the final kill himself when Gojo is not able to fight to the fullest of his capabilities. So we see Geto fight a Shikigami user. We get a very funny scene where like his life flashes before his eyes. So he thinks about his dog Tasuke, only to be like defeated completely by Geto. And Gojo then goes to find Riko at her school, which makes all the girls there jealous, including her teacher, thinking that like Gojo was her boyfriend. He then takes her away to go to Jujutsu High, but some of the bounty hunters track them down, and he carries her with his palm using his curse technique. It's a very funny scene. Very well done. I think they changed that for the manga too. And he confronts the bounty hunter who kind of has this bag on his head, and he creates these 5 clones of himself. But Gojo's just able to outmaneuver them. But once he wins that fight, Riko receives a text of Kuroi being kidnapped, having a picture of her in that happening. And you would think, oh, well, that's what the next episode's setting up. Nope. Hidden Inventory 3, episode 3 of the show. we see how they can handle the inevitable hostage situation, but then they just easily beat the people and they go to Okinawa and they kind of just goof off for a bit. And we see this is kind of part of their plan to just give Rico some time to just relax. We also see Nanami in his younger age for a little bit, and that's a true delight for me. I love Nanami so much. And they say, oh, we'll just goof off in Okinawa because there's less cursed users there. But really, the true purpose, they're trying to just give her to like the last bit of her life left because they know what's actually going to happen and she doesn't. Then they actually get to Jujutsu High, but before like they can actually get inside, he is stabbed by Toji, who it's revealed in the flashback once saw Gojo as a kid and who was one of the only people who could ever see him thanks to Gojo's abilities. Even if he was standing behind him, no one else could detect him, but Gojo could. So that freaked them out. So he's always been looking for a way to get past this guy. And he's able to do this in this fight, even though he himself has zero cursed energy and instead just uses a heavenly pact to gain power. And Tojo's able to confuse Gojo as well later on in the fight by creating a bunch of these Shikigami to blind him and distract him enough for Toji to stab him again with a cursed weapon. We see that Geto has fled with Rico to go to Tengen's domain to deliver her to him. And he gives Rico the option to leave. And he finally tells her, like, hey, this is not an assimilation. You won't be one with him and mine. This is you being erased. And after learning all that, she says, no, I think I want to live. And the moment she says that, boom, headshot, Toji kills her. That's where the episode leaves off. This is so much fun. I love Jujutsu Kaisen a lot. And it just gets better from here. It's going to be a lot more confusing from here, especially with some of the curse techniques people can use. But like, this is why I watch shonen. All this, even though this is a flashback chapter, she's not going to make it at some point in time, but to actually see it in action is another thing. It's very, it tugs at the heartstrings pretty dang well. I'll put it that way. So we'll go to Rurouni Kenshin. We'll go through episodes 2 and 3. Or actually, just episode 3 because my notes for 2 were not saved. So essentially, we meet Yahiko, who's this kid who used to be from a samurai family, and he's falling on hard times. He's having to work with the Yakuza, and like Kenshin confronts some people abusing their power in the police, beats them up, while Yahiko watches, and like a guy from the government really wants him to work for him now, but like he's like, I'm not about that life anymore. I've moved on. And we end up with with Yahiko being emboldened, being like, hey, I don't want to be a thief for the Yakuza anymore. And he stands up to him, gets beaten up. Episode 3, Kashin Ryu Reborn. We see Kaori making her way home, but she sees the 2 gangsters carrying this unconscious Yahiko. And while they're being confronted by the boss of the Yakuza, Kenshin shows up right before like this boss is like, hey, your father was a samurai who fought for the wrong cause and he was weak for his kindness, and your mother sold herself to be in the red light district until she died of a disease, and like we're the ones who took you in. Your family was worthless. All people are worthless, so you should do the evil things we tell you to. Very subtle there. But Yahiko kind of counters that his parents are good people, and that's when Kenshin shows up, and he beats the gangster who threatened Yahiko and then barters for his freedom. Something that Yahiko kind of hates because, he wasn't the one who did it himself. He doesn't want to be seen as weak and wants to become stronger. But instead of Kenshin being the one who volunteers to be his teacher, he volunteers Kaoru because she is the leader of a dojo without any students. And of course, the two of them butt heads because he's a very strong-willed person. I don't want to learn from a girl. And she's like, hey, why don't you follow my authority? I actually know what I'm doing here. And we find that Hiro and Sato, 2 of her former students, appear after they're being accosted by these men, only for it to come out that they were the ones acting in the wrong, and they were fighting this Hishimanji Guren gang. And they lay siege to the place to get them, even though rightfully they're the ones who attacked first. So they have the right to come after them to an extent. But Kaoru defends them anyways and tries to protect them, which makes Yahiko go, oh, well, maybe I could learn from this woman. And right before any of them can die, like Kenshin arrives to help them, and seeing like his skills in action, that forces the gang to leave. And the 2 students leave as well, say, hey, we're not worthy students anyway. Thank you for defending us. And Yahiko agrees to be Kaoru's student. Obviously, I've read Rurouni Kenshin, but it's real nice to see these things again in animated form. I really love this show. I'm ready for more. So that's that for Rurouni Kenshin. We'll move on to Synduality Noir. And once again, I missed episode 2 on this because it didn't save for some reason. So essentially, they meet these two people. Noir wants to know more about her past. They find this camera with her, so they go and try and see what it's about. They don't really know what it is. She meets this mysterious woman who tells her what it is. She activates some of her powers, then hooks up to his coffin once again and helps him fight in a battle that leads up. They succeed. We get to episode 3, Behind the Mask. And it starts with Tokyo kind of teasing Kanata about getting involved with Noir in that kind of very older brother kind of dumb way of like, hey, you're a real man if you do this. It's like, no, that's not how that works. And so instead, he's going to make him a real man by going to this place called Desire, which is obviously a place of ill repute where they can meet with prostitutes and the like to lose his virginity. But on the way, Ellie and Anji are going to go get Kanata to have him join them on a job, only to find that he's left. Tokyo has forced him to come with him to Desire and left Noir behind. And she informs them about this, causing Ellie to freak out. So they go and leave as they receive an alert that there's going to be an Ender like swarm nearby. So they should be watching out. And she kind of disregards it. So of course that's going to come up later. And we see Kanata at Desire, kind of like freaking out, doesn't want to do anything, but Tokyo kind of forces him in a situation where he's got to wait to give him a number, and he's got to wait for his turn to meet a woman that night. And we then go over to Ellie, Anji, and Noir, and they find a woman on the road who's a magus, who they pick up, and they find her name is Schnee, and she wants them to take her to Desire because that's where her lord is, which kind of freaks him out. It's like nobody, not even like Maguses call their masters Lord or anything like that. And Kanata, while he's waiting, he sees this man with a mask on his face, this very big Char clone for my Gundam fans out there. I mean, kind of easy to see where the inspiration comes from. And it says, he sees the worry on Kanata's face, says, hey, it's also my first time too. And Kanata thinks they're both having two different conversations this whole time. Because he was told by one of his underlings that if he went to Desire, he would meet a goddess who could lead him to paradise. Which he is legitimately looking for a goddess who will lead him to paradise, but they took it in a very different direction. So before they can actually do anything, though, the girls get attacked by some Enders. Ellie and Anji then leave Noir and Schnee so they can go find Kanata and bring him and her master, her lord, to them. And in the midst of this, Kanata leaves with Noir to go help Ellie. And the man is then told by Schnee that he was misled and the goddess key isn't there. And I'm not sure if that means the goddess named key or if there was a goddess key of some sort. Still figuring these things out. We'll work on it. And we see Kanata and Ellie then team up when he comes to save her. He still has a bit of a learning curve. So it's obvious like she's better at this, but like he has the better Magus in war, but like he's not as capable yet because he's still learning things. But as they're about to be killed, the masked man appears using his own coffin, and I think it might be called Gilbo or something like that. It's an acronym, Gilbow. And he appears with Schnee being his Magus, of course, and saves their lives. And then he leaves, kind of remarking that he had a bit of a nostalgic sense of mind while being around Kanata for some reason. So it could just be Kanata's older brother. He doesn't seem, I don't think he's that old to be his dad or anything like that. For all we know, Kanata's probably an orphan. It's pretty a safe bet. So it could be an older brother. It could be a cousin or something like that. But they seem to have some connection to each other. So what that is, I'm still speculating. But Synduality Noir, another excellent series. Let's get to a, shall we say, what's the word here? Fun comedy where a lot of people die. That being Zom 100, Bucket List of the Dead. And this is, of course, episode 2, Bucket List of the Dead. We flash back to a time when Akira had 100-degree fever and he gets ridiculed by his boss who demands, hey, what do you mean you're going to call out of work? You're still going to work because we're not going to make our deadline. And he wakes up oh man, that was just a dream of a memory he had a couple of years ago. So he takes the time to clean up his apartment, and he celebrates that by drinking some beer. And he watches a news broadcast of Tokyo overrun by zombies. But then the connection goes dark, and he goes back to his fridge and realizes that it's empty of the beer that he desperately wants, because he just wants to celebrate right now, even in the midst of all this tragedy, because like he's free from his job. So he goes out to go get some, and he kind of shimmies down on a water pipe, meeting his neighbors in like the apartment next in the building next door. And they're kind of panicking about the situation, while he at the same time is just leaving to go on his bike and get some beer at a local convenience store. And while he's there, he finds a runner who she is just drinking some water there, and she chastises him like, hey, like, I came here for supplies, you came here for some beer. What, you're not right in the head. And as he's talking with her, like, zombies are about to enter into the convenience store, but there's this out of control vehicle. The driver has become a zombie himself and like isn't able to control it. That smashes in. She pushes him down out of the way, saves him. His bike gets damaged, and she speeds away on her own. She's like, hey, like, I don't know this guy. Like, I saved him, but at the end of the day, I owe him nothing. And runs away. Like, eventually we'll find her name is Shizuka. I had to look this up because I don't think it's said within the episode proper. So instead of saying her, I'm going to say Shizuka. And so he then finds a scooter and drives away on it instead, and returns back to his place, only to find that his neighbors he was talking with earlier are dead. And like realizing, oh, well, I should find some purpose in my life. He starts assembling his actual list and crosses out some of what he's done already. And his 31st idea we see is he's going to leave and go see his parents. We then flash over to the girl who earlier that day, she was exercising and trying to contact her superiors at her work in LA. Like, she's in like the Japanese branch of whatever office this is, but gets nothing. And that makes her realize, oh, this isn't just a Japan problem. This is a global problem. And conversely to him, she starts making a list of things to do in order to survive. And we see his list is more like things he's going to do before he becomes a zombie. So I like a very clear contrast between the two of them. The work is excellent foils for each other. Since she's on the poster, I'm imagining she's going to be more of a figure, maybe potential love interest along the way. I love the two of their interactions, like his irresponsibility, her hyper-focused responsibility. I think they're going to play off of each other really well, especially with the new friend we add to this in episode 3, that being, of course, the best friend of the dead. We start in this nightclub where people have taken shelter inside in the midst of the apocalypse. And one of the leaders there, he goes to comfort a child and says, hey, things will be okay. I'm here to protect you. And he goes out with a group of guys to fight the zombies that are trying to break into the place. And some of them start dying, like, in defense of this, because, like, they're obviously not equipped for it. Like, Japan's gun laws are pretty dang strict, so not everyone's going to be able to start firing off, like they would in America, as you would expect. And we didn't go over to Akira, who is making his way to Shinjuku so we can meet his friend Kensho. And we see earlier that day that he realized that the internet's come back online, and kind of confirming there's some official presence out there. So like the entire government hasn't collapsed. There's a way to restore power in some places. And we then flash over to a different club. I think a different club, where we see Kensho, who only survived the original outbreak because this is so stupid, because he was locked inside for a bondage session with a woman, but somehow she got infected too, which makes me realize it's just some airborne disease that only affects certain people. Was it something in the food people ate? I'm not entirely sure yet, but that's something fun for speculation. And so she's infected, but right now is bound up, and he was drunk, so he slept through the beginnings of the apocalypse, essentially, while she turned overnight or something like that. And he recalls like his friendship with Akira right as he gets a call from him. And he recalls, Akira recalls how Kensho was always like the best friend you could ever have around. He was always a funny guy, always laughed at his jokes, but he started working as a real estate agent after college and high school and all that. And Kensho tried to get him to stop working at his terrible job, but Akira just snapped at him because, he was just wounded and broken and he couldn't figure things out. And he's so torn up about that he wants to make things better between them. I can't remember if that's actually part of the list or something like that, but it definitely should be. And we see Sho at that same time is one of the last of the defenders down, and he's about to die as the zombies just go past him. But before he can be killed, the zombies hear a car horn, and instead of going after the secured kill they already have, they respond to the noise instead. And it's revealed that this is Akira's doing. He taped the rugby ball to a car horn to attract them there while he went after Kensho. So Sho is saved by this mysterious figure. He has no clue who it is. When you see Akira and Sho reunite, and Akira apologizes to him for how he acted. Unfortunately, he does so by yelling, which after the car horn stops beeping, the zombies hear him instead, so they come after him and they flee to the roof. When you see Akira jump over to the other roof, like fearless fool, but Kensho's like, he's not ready to do it. Like, say, hey, Kensho, you can do it too. And it forces Kensho to be like, hey, I wasn't as good as you thought I was. My job was miserable too. I hated taking advantage of people. I hated talking to people who were taking advantage of other people. And like, I gave them all these bad deals and I reaped the benefits and the rewards. And like, all he ever wanted to do was inspire people and make them laugh. So he says, hey, I want to be a stand-up comic instead. And this emboldens him to make the jump. And he reaches Akira in time, like inexplicably losing his clothes at the same time. As he gets to the roof, barely holds on. Akira then pulls him up. And the two of them drink some beers and reflect on their life and friendship. This show, I heard a lot of people hyping it up, but dang, it's good too. I'm very curious about how is their government still around? How does the zombie virus actually work? But like, what more people are we going to meet? How are they going to all join up in this group to, watch out for each other? How is this bucket list going to be seen and perceived by the members of the group? I'm loving this series. I'm so glad I pared this down. Yeah, because this happened to be an hour instead of 2 hours. Excellent shows. Let me know what you guys are watching in this anime season. Like, once again, other things you'd like me to at least talk about. Like, what are my feelings on this? What have you? Put those in the comments below. Share this video, like it, subscribe to our channel. We're very grateful to all of you. But remember, we're all a chosen people, a geekdom of priests.